In 1988, there was this multi-million-dollar, absolute state-of-the-art American warship called the USS Samuel B. Roberts. And it was nearly torn in half in the Persian Gulf.
Right, it was a massive incident.
Yeah, and the crazy part is it wasn't hit by some, hypersonic missile or a nuclear submarine. It was crippled by this explosive orb that cost maybe a few $1,000s. It was literally using technology that dates back to World War I.
It really is the ultimate paradox of naval warfare. I mean, we spend billions developing these ships that can track aircraft in space and shoot down missiles traveling at Mach 5.
Yeah.
But then a floating metal sphere filled with high explosives can just bring an entire carrier strike group to a dead halt.
It's wild. And welcome to the deep dive, everyone. Today, our mission is unpacking the mechanics of that exact paralysis. We're looking at India's vulnerability to this threat as a window into a much larger global problem.
Because it really is a global issue.
Exactly. When you think of naval warfare, you probably picture these massive fleets, right? But the sources we're looking at today reveal that the most disruptive weapon out there is often completely silent. It's just hidden beneath the waves. It's basically like an invisible tripwire in a dark room.
That's a great way to put it. The tripwire analogy is perfect. Naval mines are actually among the oldest maritime weapons we have, yet they remain uniquely capable of, halting global shipping and forcing the world's most powerful navies to just retreat.
And for you listening right now, you might be thinking, well, I'm not in the Navy. Why does this matter to me? But this isn't just military history. When a ship hits a mine in a critical global choke point, the price of the gas you put in your car tomorrow morning spikes.
Oh, absolutely.
The ocean is directly connected to your wallet. And the supply chains that bring goods to your doorstep they're incredibly fragile.
They are. And they're fragile primarily because of the brutal economic and operational asymmetry of mine warfare.
The asymmetry. Let's break that math down because it's honestly staggering.
Right. So a standard naval mine can cost around, say, $10,000 to $20,000.
Which, in military procurement terms, is absolute pocket change.
It's nothing. But the physical damage it inflicts is in the tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's not even counting the cargo that gets lost.
Yeah, or the lives.
Exactly. And the other side of that asymmetry is the deployment. You don't need some advanced industrial shipyard or a high-tech stealth bomber to drop a mine in the water.
Right, you can just roll it off the back of a ship.
Yeah, a commercial fishing trawler or a modified cargo ship can just drop them in the dead of night. Putting the weapon into the environment is trivial, but removing it.
That's the night air scenario.
It requires a monumental, agonizingly slow response. If a defending navy even suspects a mine has been laid, they can't just, find one, blow it up, and declare the area safe.
Because there could be dozens more.
Right. They have to find and neutralize every single potential threat in that grid.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because this sounds exactly like finding a single dangerous spider in your bedroom. Oh, that's a visceral image.
Right. Like you have to tear apart the entire room, checking every shoe, every corner before you can safely go to sleep. The weapon's true power isn't just the bite, it's the paranoia.
The paranoia is exactly the point. When mines are even suspected to be in the water, everything just stops. Insurance costs skyrocket, civilian ships reroute, and specialized military vessels have to be deployed.
The MCMVs, right. Mine Countermeasure Vessels.
Yes, the MCMVs. And this is where the engineering gets fascinating. Because to hunt these things, navies essentially have to build their ships backward, technologically.
Wait, backward? How do you mean?
Well, it comes down to the sensors that modern mines use. Massive steel warships and cargo vessels act like giant magnets moving through the ocean. They literally distort the Earth's magnetic field as they pass.
Oh, wow.
And mines are designed to detect that invisible magnetic shadow. So to counter this, modern MCMVs are constructed out of fiberglass, reinforced plastics, or sometimes even wood.
Okay, wait. They literally build modern warships out of wood just to avoid triggering the magnet. Precisely. They also have to be designed to be incredibly quiet to avoid acoustic sensors. So you have these highly specialized, slow-moving, fragile ships creeping through suspected minefields.
Just inching along.
Right. They use high-frequency sonar to map the seabed inch by inch. And when they see an anomaly, they deploy remotely operated underwater vehicles, or ROVs, and sometimes even human divers, just to get visual confirmation. It is a painstaking process.
So it's not just finding a needle in a haystack, it's finding a needle in a haystack where the needle is actively listening for the sound of your heartbeat.
That is the operational reality. And at sea, that strategic uncertainty is just as powerful as explosive firepower.
Which raises the question, though, Since we've established that the mere paranoia of a mine is enough to freeze shipping, is this paranoia historically justified, or is it just like a theoretical fear?
Oh, it is deeply justified by history. In World War II, mines sank or damaged hundreds of ships across both the Atlantic and the Pacific.
Hundreds of ships.
Yes, and during the Korean War, naval mines actually caused more damage to U.S. naval vessels than any other weapon.
Wait, really? More than torpedoes or artillery?
More than anything else. That was a huge wake-up call. And then you have the 1980s tanker war between Iran and Iraq, where Persian Gulf shipping was constantly threatened. That's when the USS Samuel B. Roberts was hit.
The ship we mentioned at the start.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even in modern day, we see massive disruptions in the Black Sea conflict. But the weapons used in the past are primitive compared to what sits on the sea floor today.
Here's where it's really interesting, though, because I want to push back a little on this idea of mines being a simple poor man's weapon. Because the new tech we're reading about in the sources, it's not just a floating spiked ball anymore, right?
Not at all. Today's mines are incredibly sophisticated. They don't even need to be touched to detonate.
Right, they just sit on the seabed, sometimes hundreds of feet down, and listen.
Yes, they use acoustic sensors tuned to the specific engine cavitation of a particular class of ship. They use the magnetic sensors we talked about. And they use pressure sensors.
Okay, explain the pressure sensor, because that sounds impossible to hide from.
It is impossible to hide from. A massive cargo ship displacing 100,000 tons of water creates a massive downward hydrodynamic pressure wave as it moves. The mine, sitting in the mud below, feels that invisible squeeze in the water column and triggers.
So you can't mask it. A heavy ship is going to displace water, period.
Exactly. But what's really fascinating here is the ship counting mechanism.
Oh, this part is terrifying.
Right. A modern mine could be programmed to literally ignore the first 3 ships that pass over it and only arm itself for the 4th.
So how does a Navy even begin to confidently declare an area clear if the mine is smart enough to count?
That's the problem. It completely destroys the confidence of any sweeping operation. A Navy could send their wooden-hulled sweeper ship over a transit lane 3 times. The sensors show nothing. The water seems safe.
They declare it clear.
They declare it clear, send the high-value aircraft carrier or the fully loaded oil tanker through on the 4th pass, and that is the one that triggers the explosion.
That is diabolical. And it makes mine warfare an incredibly attractive tool for weaker navies, or in these gray zone conflicts we keep hearing about.
Exactly, where the source of the mine can remain frustratingly anonymous.
So if the only way to avoid these smart mines is to steer clear of them entirely, we have to look at the geographical nightmare of countries that simply don't have the option to reroute. Which brings us to a specific, highly vulnerable target from the text.
India.
Yes, India. And by extension, the entire global economy. Let's look at why India is the ultimate case study here.
Well, India relies on the sea for nearly 95% of its trade by volume.
95%.
Yes. We are talking about the crude oil that powers their grid, the natural gas for their industries, and the raw materials that feed their manufacturing base. Their economic lifeblood is entirely dependent on the ocean.
So imagine a massive 10-lane interstate highway that suddenly forces all traffic onto a single narrow dirt road. If someone drops a box of nails on that dirt road, the entire continent's traffic backs up.
That's a very accurate analogy. The geography of the global maritime arteries is unforgiving. You have 3 primary choke points in that region.
Let's walk through them. First is the Strait of Hormuz, right?
Yes, in the west. The Strait of Hormuz is the absolute jugular for Middle Eastern energy supplies flowing out to the world. A massive percentage of global oil passes through that narrow gap.
And then you have the Bab-el-Mandeb Strait.
Right, connecting the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden. That is the gateway for anything moving through the Suez Canal to or from Europe.
And finally, over in the east, the Strait of Malacca,
which is a remarkably narrow waterway that handles a huge portion of the trade flowing between the Indian Ocean and the Pacific, linking economies like China, Japan, and South Korea to the rest of the world.
And these straits aren't just narrow, they're relatively shallow, which makes those pressure-sensitive mines lethally effective, right?
Exactly. In a place like the Bab-el-Mandeb, a massive cargo ship has very little vertical clearance between its hull and the seabed. It can't dilute its acoustic or pressure signature by sailing in deep water. It is forced into a very tight, very predictable box.
And if someone mines that box, the economic fallout is immediate. I mean, we're talking energy price spikes, slowed supply chains.
And surging insurance premiums. If even a handful of mines are discovered in the Strait of Hormuz, the London insurance markets will immediately designate it a war risk area.
Which means the insurance becomes so expensive that ship owners simply refuse to make the journey.
Right. The alternative is to reroute the vessels entirely. If the Suez Canal or the Bab-el-Mandeb is compromised, ships have to travel all the way around the Cape of Good Hope at the southern tip of Africa.
Adding weeks to the journey, and that directly hits the listener's wallet no matter where they live. Because energy prices spike globally, and the cost of everyday consumer goods rises to absorb the shipping delays.
Exactly. A few strategically placed mines in the Strait of Malacca wouldn't just hurt India, they would delay global shipments for weeks.
So what does this all mean? If these geographical choke points are the economic jugular, and modern naval mines are the dagger, what is India actually doing to defend itself in such a tense neighborhood?
Well, this is where the text highlights a critical vulnerability. India currently has a severe shortage of dedicated mine countermeasure vessels.
The MCMVs, the specialized ships.
Right. Due to years of procurement delays and program cancellations, India's existing fleet has largely aged out. Their ability to conduct large-scale mine countermeasure operations is currently highly limited.
So they're essentially missing their defensive shield against mines.
Yes. And we connect this to the bigger picture. This is happening at a time when the Indian Ocean is becoming increasingly crowded and contested.
Right. The geopolitics are shifting fast. China is expanding its naval presence, right?
Yes. China has been steadily increasing its footprint, including a new overseas base in Djibouti, which sits right near the Bab-el-Mandeb Strait.
Right on the choke point.
Exactly. And the sources also point out Pakistan's naval development, which is happening with significant Chinese assistance. Plus, you have Iran, which has well-documented significant mine capabilities right there in the Persian Gulf.
So we have all these major players crowding into the Indian Ocean, and India's defensive shield is down. Aren't we just waiting for a spark in a powder keg?
The Indian Ocean is definitely no longer a quiet space. In this highly contested environment, the text makes it clear that mine warfare could easily be used to delay naval deployments or quietly disrupt trade.
Without provoking an immediate, full-scale conventional war, which brings us back to that gray zone conflict idea.
Right. Gray zone warfare hovers just below the threshold of declared war. It's all about plausible deniability. You can covertly deploy a dozen smart mines in a key transit lane.
And when a ship hits one 3 months later, you can't trace the ballistic trajectory. The source is totally anonymous.
Exactly. It makes it incredibly difficult for the victim nation to justify kinetic military retaliation.
So, how do we fix this? What's the path forward to close this defense gap?
Well, the solutions outlined in the text are clear. First, India must accelerate its acquisition of MCMVs. You have to have the physical hulls in the water.
But just buying more wooden ships isn't enough anymore, right?
No, it's not. They have to invest heavily in new technology. The analysis emphasizes unmanned underwater vehicles, or UUVs.
Oh, like underwater drones.
Exactly. Autonomous mine hunters equipped with AI-assisted detection.
Taking the human risk completely out of the minefield.
Yes. They can map the seabed autonomously, identify the acoustic and magnetic signatures, and neutralize the threat without putting human sailors at risk.
That makes a lot of sense.
And beyond the technology, there has to be regional naval cooperation. Maritime choke points are global arteries, so it requires a multinational response. Sharing intelligence, conducting joint mine clearing exercises, it's essential.
It really redefines what we think of as sea control. We usually think of aircraft carriers and massive fleet battles.
But true sea control isn't just about defeating an enemy fleet. It's about ensuring vital sea lanes remain open. Freedom of navigation is the ultimate goal. Without it, even the most powerful navies are just trapped in port.
It's amazing how something so small and hidden can dictate the movements of the largest superpowers. We started this deep dive talking about that invisible tripwire and how the mere suspicion of its existence freezes the global economy.
It really does.
And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, building on what we learned about gray zone conflicts. If modern mines can be secretly dropped by civilian vessels and a damage can be blamed on leftover historical weapons or anonymous actors, does the very concept of a formal declaration of war at sea become obsolete? Next time you read about a sudden spike in oil prices or a delayed cargo shipment, you have to wonder, is it just a logistical hiccup, or is there something waiting quietly beneath the surface?
Thank you for joining us on this Strategic Vanguard podcast. If you found value in this analysis, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We bring you fresh podcasts every Monday here on YouTube and Rumble, and you can also catch the audio versions on Spotify and Amazon Music. Just search for Strategic Vanguard Podcast. For more insights, articles, and discussions, subscribe to our blog at strategicvanguard.com. Your support helps us grow and bring you more in-depth analysis on defense, geopolitics, and strategy. Until next time, stay informed, stay strategic.